Elsiu, Hagen and Sonti, Avirus. Meanwhile,
Who would have thought that, in a TV show made by David Lynch, the iconic final statement by Laura Palmer at the end of Twin Peaks was meant literally? Well, as it turns out, it was, and Agent Cooper's odyssey into the quiet northwestern town and the eldritch powers of the Black Lodge picks up, exactly 25 years later. Wow. No matter if you're like me and have spent a lifetime of brooding over the show's quirks and themes and its dark secrets and idiosyncrasies, and of course the coffee and pastries of this charming and sedate little town, or if the renewal was your first peek into David Lynch's iconic mystery universe, after watching the first 2 episodes, you probably felt like this. The reception so far is positive yet polarized at times, either gushing about the return of the unmistakably Lynchian beauty in visual storytelling, or condoning it for being frustrating. This danger of frustration is something that belongs to David Lynch like a hot black cup of joe to a slice of cherry pie. I just had to be cheesy, sorry. It usually comes up when you approach his works with the expectation to be able to decipher it. That if you only pay close enough attention, you'll reach this eureka moment where you suddenly know, oh, okay, that's what it means. Now it all makes sense. I've been there. But that just won't happen. I'm convinced that David Lynch regularly approaches the writing for his scenarios, scenes, and themes without an absolute crystal clear interpretation in mind, but he rather comes up with the things that just feel right. That means something to the creator himself, but that don't necessarily have the one true interpretation hidden behind a thin smokescreen of symbolism.
It's, you're working a thing, on a straight-ahead film, you work a scene till it feels correct. And this, you work a scene till it feels correct. The order of scenes, there's a thing that you find by sometimes action and reaction, trial and error. But it's always talking to you, and so you just go until it feels right.
And that's where the appeal and also the fun lies, if you ask me. What everyone, in good and bad, seems to agree on is that the new season does not feel like your average run-of-the-mill television show. It confuses more than it reveals, and it feels deliberately slow-paced and unconventionally patient in its delivery, and at the same time, or rather through that, foreboding and menacing in a very unusual way. Instead of imitating the almost rhythmically fast pace and structure of modern binge television, it feels more like a forgotten Tarkovsky movie, mysteriously produced with contemporary state-of-the-art technology that you found covered in thick layers of dust in some old desk drawer or something. I personally find that exceptionally refreshing, while others see it as a reason to be disappointed. How dare you not turn Twin Peaks into yet another Walking Dead-like cliffhanger fest, David? Well, I'm fairly convinced that within those first 2 episodes, he actually addressed this very question. It is all right here. Yeah, that creepy, nondescript glass box sitting in an empty room, staring out at the New York skyline through a circular hole in the wall, with a person watching it apathetically for hours on end and for no particular reason. It was one of the many things that made me frown and go what the fuck in my mind during this double feature, next to the electrified evolution of Armtree, Doppelcoup, and yeah, so many other things. Because what even is happening here? Why is a young man apparently being paid to watch this contraption in secrecy, waiting for something to happen without having a clue what it actually is? Methodically recording and cataloging every second of its existence in the hopes of what exactly? Now, if you try to explain it solely within the diegetic context of the show's universe, then we can at least conclude from Agent Cooper eventually spawning into the box that it is in some way connected to the Black Lodge, like a gateway between worlds. But I couldn't help but think that this is not the sole purpose of the glass box. It couldn't help but feel that there's a bit more to it, that this is a device through which the director himself speaks directly to the audience and paints a very dark and dreary picture of what our culture has become in the quarter of a century that Twin Peaks was slumbering. You probably either have no idea what I'm talking about or already think that I'm reaching here, right? So let me explain. But to do this, we first have to embark on a little journey through television history. Most TV shows nowadays, and by that I mean specifically drama series, follow a continuous narrative arc that is spanned over many episodic, quote-unquote, short films, if you will. Basically, a series is a very long movie split into mostly hour-long segments. But that wasn't always the case. TV series used to be almost exclusively written in a way that allowed viewers to pitch in at any time, during any season at random, and they would get a self-contained narrative arc with a beginning and an end, so they would never miss crucial information necessary to understand all the vital plot points in the episode. If the series featured a plot that spanned over the entire series, it was usually scattered in tiny bits across many episodes and more like an overarching element for the hardcore fans, but never mandatory to enjoy a singular episode on its own.
Last time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Was more an exception than the rule, and cliffhangers were an absolute rarity, used almost exclusively in special double feature episodes. And they were usually followed up by the iconic...
And now, the conclusion. Yep. It was just a matter of knowing the secret of all TV shows. At the end of the episode, everything's always right back to normal.
This format was, as it is with everything, a result of the medium. TV shows were exclusively delivered through television broadcasts, and buying DVD box sets was simply not a thing, especially before the invention of the DVD. So there was really no way to reliably watch series on demand, in order. So if you wanted to keep up with a show, you had to be there at the right time every week, or record it on VHS or Betamax, because otherwise you'd miss it. So logically, the writing of TV shows used to be tailored around that. Our modern form of binge television only started to become a thing after DVDs became commonplace and really started to conquer everything with broadband internet. The medium is the message. Just like music albums used to be structured in acts that were tailored to the length of a side of an LP, or like indie games were only able to flourish in the age of digital distribution, and the costly overhead of physical distribution was eliminated. But of course, there's always the exception, the work that is in many ways ahead of its time. For binge television, that was, you guessed it, Twin Peaks. It pioneered this radical new approach of a continuous narrative arc that needed to be watched consecutively in order to keep up with the story. Because continuous narrative arcs in TV shows at the time was something that was mostly reserved for soap operas, which is why it had a certain flavor to it. But Twin Peaks was fully aware of that stigma, and it both self-consciously embraced the soap trope and recurringly made fun of it. It basically took this format that was previously considered lowest common denominator entertainment, made it cerebral, and catapulted it into the mainstream. And this became one of the key factors that turned it from a simple murder mystery show into a cultural phenomenon. It was truly ahead of its time. And aside from a few other examples, like Star Trek Deep Space Nine and in parts The X-Files, which even took open and heavy inspiration from Twin Peaks in the first place, it really took a good decade until this format really took up steam. But these days, binge television and drama series is the norm.
I think feature films are in trouble, and the art houses are dead. Cable television being, a place for a continuing story told with freedom is a beautiful thing.
The way we consume television shows has drastically changed through the widespread accessibility of broadband internet and on-demand services like Netflix, Hulu, HBO, and Amazon. But it has also become widely formulaic. The vast majority of modern drama series follows an almost mechanical approach in terms of pacing and narrative structure that audiences have become somewhat complacent and are hard to really surprise. You know what you're gonna get, and you know what to expect, even down to things like plot twists and cliffhangers. Yeah, even the most popular and critically acclaimed television shows of all time have become, in many ways, extremely predictable in terms of pacing and delivery, because producers seem to have figured out what works in order to keep an audience glued to the screen, and they obey that path. Mostly, of course. And we keep watching. These days, not just at home, but basically wherever we go, with our notebooks and tablets and smartphones.
Now, if you're playing the movie on a telephone, you will never in a trillion years experience the film. You'll think you have experienced it, but you'll be cheated. It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
And we keep following season after season, hoping for some kind of tacit, undefined bliss. But most of the times, we never get there. We only get the next cliffhanger, and the next, and the next. And we keep binging until we've long forgotten how we got here in the first place. This is us, sitting in our rooms, on a couch arranged towards the one thing we keep staring at for hours on end. The glass box that comes with the unspoken promise of some undisclosed form of something to happen that makes a difference. Everything in this room makes it abundantly clear that the glass box is the absolute center of our attention, of our lives. All the other stuff is just meaningless rubbish that we don't really need. Aside from lots and lots of data storage, of course, that for some reason belongs to an unknown billionaire who, for more reasons unknown, wants to keep us watching, keep staring at the glass box. Think about it. This is literally a box with a hole, a camera obscura. And the camera basically has become our window through which we see the outside world. We become more and more lonely and isolated. We cannot really leave and intuitively feel that it's best if we let no one in. But if we do let our social guard down once in a while, then what do we do when we stare at the box together? We embed it into our social life. We build it around the box. We have sex. Or how it is called these days, we Netflix and chill. Getting together to binge TV series has turned into a social phenomenon, using the sedative and droning nature of TV entertainment as a segue or a bridge to build romantic relationships. It's so commonplace that it has turned into a fucking meme. So here we are. Dale Cooper has been locked away for 25 years in the Black Lodge, and we've turned into lonely drones of modern media entertainment in the meantime. But at least we're still having coffee, right?
I brought us 2 lattes again.
Well,
But even here, it is no longer
black as midnight on a moonless night. Pretty black.
we drink syrupy lattes from one of the uncountable Starbucks derivatives served in soulless paper cups. Things have truly changed, haven't they?
And now, the conclusion.
After hundreds of TV shows that have all followed in the footsteps of Twin Peaks in one way or another, and after countless films, books, shows, video games that have taken open and loving inspiration from the iconic and enigmatic storytelling style of David Lynch, this is none other than he himself, the director, the maker trying to shake us awake from our somnambulistic television habits by literally shattering the fourth wall and jumping in the face of the audience, saying, "Listen, kiddos, it's really neat what you've done here while I was away. Like, I really appreciate it, but now Papa's back, so would you please step aside? You all know that you've been waiting for something to happen without really knowing what, so here's what I have for you. It is not gonna be what you expect, but I promise if you don't look away and pay attention, it is gonna tear you apart."